Thank you very much. I think the short answer is an agreement between all Afghan sides on how to govern their own country. The arrival of the American forces from day one, it was clear that they could not sustain themselves there forever. It's inevitable that there will be a day when the United States have had to leave. And in fact, from 2014-15, there's been a major reduction in terms of forces. And also last year, following the 29th of February agreement, the Americans did start withdrawing their forces, and they were left with a couple of thousand soldiers that they have now postponed until 9/11 2021. So there is no reason for the Afghans really at this stage not to come together and agree on a common future. As far as the Taliban are concerned, they have consistently claim that their war is about liberating the country from invading forces, and by September those invading forces will be out. So there will be less of an excuse or reason for continuation of the jihad in Afghanistan. And at the moment, as you know, the two parties are in talks in Doha. And those talks have suffered from a number of delays. Some were engineered by the Afghan parties themselves. Other delays were really imposed on the Afghans and on Afghanistan from outside. One of the challenges facing Afghanistan has always been that the action on the ground is not dictated necessarily by the priorities of Afghans, but it is being dictated by geopolitics and political priorities elsewhere, and in particular in Washington, D.C. So a couple of delays that they faced has been triggered by the American elections, first waiting to see whether Trump would continue or not, and then when Biden came into power, there was a whole period of time when nothing has been declared about Afghanistan, and then there was a period when they were revisiting their arrangement and so on, and all of that have really took the steam out of the process of intra-Afghan process that started in September. The hope now is that they've come back and they will engage seriously in talks, and everybody expects that before the 11th of September an answer should be found. Well, I don't think the use of force is going to bend any side at this moment. And the Taliban are very aware of the fact that the international community is totally unwilling to recognize a government that takes over the country by military force. And if the Taliban is serious about governing or participating in the government on the governing of Afghanistan, they have to take on board the wishes and the relationship, a very complex relationship with its neighbors and with the international community at large. Afghanistan is one of the most aid-dependent countries in the world. At the moment, 30% or more of its aid goes on military expenditure. Now the Afghans have an opportunity to reduce that by having a peaceful future and help the international community support them to rebuild the country and bring it on a track of peace. I think the Taliban are very aware of this, and they would be making a huge mistake if they were to simply push by force into power. And all the indications we've seen so far is that they are genuine in their approach so far and in their commitment to seek a negotiated settlement. That, of course, does not mean that there has been a ceasefire on the ground, and this has been right from the beginning the condition under which the Taliban agreed to engage in talks, first with the Americans that led to the 29th of February agreement, and later on with the other Afghan sides, that they will not stop the war. And that, I think, has to do with the nature of the movement, the way they recruit their soldiers, the way those soldiers or fighters engage. As you know, many of them are part-time fighters. They're not full-time fighters. They may be farmers during the day, fighting at night. They move differently from a regular organized army. So for them, a ceasefire, in the traditional definition of ceasefire, was totally unacceptable. And having said that, of course, over the last 2 years, since they've started talking to the Americans first and then the other Afghans, they have agreed and implemented 3 limited ceasefires around Eid. And those were sufficient, I think, to demonstrate to the Afghans and to the world